Okay, let's start up Eiffel Studio. By default, the first thing we see is a dialog that lets us choose an existing project in which to work, or to create a new project. For new projects, we can choose among several different pre-configured templates geared toward common needs. Well, we just want to create a basic application, so I'll select that option. Let's give our application a name. Demo should work. And we'll let it reside in the default location for Eiffel projects. Next, we need to make a choice of which compilation target we want to use. I'm using Eiffelstudio installed on Microsoft Windows 7, so here by default our new project will support both an Eiffel Classic target and a Microsoft .NET target. We'll choose the Classic target. Eiffelstudio will create a configuration file in the default root class for the project and compile the application. In fact, the application that gets created when we use the basic application template is the ubiquitous Hello World console application. We can run this application by clicking the Run button in the project toolbar. Okay, I'll press Return to exit the application. What you see here is the default Eiffelstudio layout. It consists of the toolbars, panes, and tools that will be visible in Eiffelstudio as it comes right out of the box. Or maybe right off the download, I suppose. But the layout is malleable, so you can customize it to your needs as you work through the development process. Let's take a look at some of the ways that Eiffelstudio can be customized. First, here we see three panes. One is an editor pane that has one or more editor tools in tabs. The other two are tools panes, containing various other tools. Not all the tools and toolbars are visible in the default layout. To make others visible, you can enable them from the View menu. For example, I can display the refactoring toolbar or hide it. You can rearrange tools into more panes if you have enough screen real estate. And you can customize what you see on each toolbar and where the toolbars are docked. Notice that in a single pane you may see multiple tools, each of which is represented by a tab. For example, Groups, Features, Autotest, and Favorites share the rightmost pane. I can navigate through the tools by clicking on the tabs. And I can move any of these tools from the pane it's currently in to another pane, dock it as a new tools pane, or leave it undocked as a separate window, independent of the layout. So you can redock just about any tool to any other part of the layout. When you drag a tool out from its mooring, you'll see that a set of docking targets appears. You can redock to one of these targets or leave the tool undocked. Here I'll undock the Groups tool from the rightmost pane and pull it out by itself. And this is done by dragging its tab. Now I can drop it somewhere else to redock it. In this case, let's say I want to put it in a pane by itself just to the right of the pane that contains the tools, class, feature, outputs, etc. If you develop favorite tool layouts for certain phases of development, you can name and save your custom layouts and recall them later as you need them. You do this through the View Tools Layout menu. And if you get things hopelessly fouled up, as I have on occasion, you can always select Reset Tools Layout to go back to the Eiffelstudio default layout. I'll do that now. As a bit of an aside at this point, I want to mention that because Eiffelstudio is built and maintained using Eiffelstudio and the Eiffel libraries, you can build this same type of sophisticated interface for your own applications. Now let's look at some of the most commonly used tools in Eiffelstudio. And along the way we'll see pick and drop, another aspect of Eiffelstudio that you'll find somewhat different from other environments you've used. First, I'll go to the Groups tool and expand one of the class libraries used by this application. Let's go into the Structures subfolder, the List subfolder, and find the class Linked List, one of my personal favorites. If I left-click on the Linked List class oval, then the text of Linked List appears in the Editor pane. This is a library class, so it's not really editable. But it's a class that's substantial enough that we can use it to show different class views. Eiffelstudio provides us with several class views that are accessible through icons on the address toolbar. As I mouse over these icons, you'll see the names of the views: Basic Text, Clickable, Flat, Contract, and Interface. The Basic Text view is unique in two ways. It's the only view in which software can be edited, except in the case of library classes like this one. And it's the only view that's generated from the class text itself. All other views are uneditable and are generated from the Eiffel compiler's abstract syntax tree. The other views help us see the classes in certain ways based on our software engineering roles at the time. For example, the Contract view would be useful if we were in the role of reuse consumer interested in reusing the class Linked List. Contract shows us all the features of Linked List that are available to us as reuse consumers and what our obligations and benefits are for using each feature, without revealing the implementation of those features. In the bottom pane, one of the tabs is the Class tool, which, with the exception of the Basic Text view, supports the same class views as the Editor tool, plus several more. But how do we target the Class tool to a class like Linked List? Well, there are several ways, but the one I want to demonstrate is a staple of Eiffelstudio navigation called Pick and Drop. It's similar to drag and drop, but it's better for a couple of reasons in my estimation. So we want to target the Class tool to the class Linked List. To do so with Pick and Drop, we go to any place in which the class name Linked List is enabled, or, as we say, pickable. This could be the class name in the Editor pane, or the class name in the Groups tool, or any number of other places. Let's use the Groups tool. So we move our mouse over the token representing Linked List, and this time we right-click and release. As you might expect, we get a context menu. The first entry in the menu is Pick Class Linked List. If we select it by either right or left click and release, you'll see that our mouse pointer now is transformed into the class token, or pebble as we sometimes call it. At this point, we've picked the class Linked List. We can then move over the Class tool and drop Linked List into the Class tool. We drop the pebble by a right click and release. Or if for some reason we decide that we haven't picked the object that we really want, we can cancel the pick by a left click and release. When we did the first right click and release over Linked List, what you were seeing then was the default Eiffelstudio behavior. That is, right click produces a context menu. This is what most users would expect to happen. However, in Eiffelstudio, you'll find that going directly to Pick and Drop is often very handy, and you may want to do that without having to deal with the context menu. By holding the Shift key when you right-click, Eiffelstudio bypasses the context menu and picks the object. Or if you prefer, and many Eiffelstudio users do, you can use Eiffelstudio Preferences to change to Pick and Drop by default on a right click. Let's do that. Preferences are under the Tools menu. Eiffelstudio can be customized to a great degree by using these preferences. The different preferences are arranged in a tree structure. Now, I can tell you that the pick and drop preference is in the General category. But if we didn't already know that, we could switch to a flat view of the preferences, which allows us to filter all preferences for a particular keyword. In our case, I'll type in pick. That should do it. Now I'll change the value to true. Pick and drop will now be the default. But if I ever want the context menu, I can still get it by holding the Shift key when I right-click. So now the class tool is targeted to the class linked list, but you'll notice that what we see in the tool is not the source code for the class. Rather, there's a structured list of class names. These are the ancestors of linked list. It happens that the ancestors view is the default view for the class tool. We could actually have picked the linked list class and dropped its pebble on any of the view icons, and the class tool would have used that view rather than ancestors. We call these view icons buttonholes because we can click them like buttons to change the view, or alternatively drop a pebble into them to change both the view and the target. But getting back to linked list ancestors, remember that Eiffel supports multiple inheritance, so some classes in the structure have multiple parents. And of course, all the class names that you see here are also pickable. Let me mouse over the buttons for the other views so you can see their names in the tooltips. Let's go to a source code view of linked list, maybe the contract view. I'll pick a feature of the class. Notice that now we have the green cross pebble, indicating that we picked a feature versus a class. I'll drop the feature in the Feature tool. Actually, I can drop it anywhere in the main area of the pane, and the tool context will detect the type of the pebble and shift to the Feature tool. As with classes, you can see that there are several view buttons that will provide different types of information about this feature. Next, let's take a quick look at some of the other Eiffelstudio tools. But before we do this, I'm going to open a different project, one a little more complex than the default Hello World application. Indeed, many of our customers choose Eiffel and Eiffelstudio precisely because the method and the tools afford them extraordinary control when developing large systems and libraries. The Outputs tool shows you the output of any ongoing process, for example, Eiffel compilation or external compilation. The Error List tool shows you errors and warnings from the compilations. Both the Outputs tool and the Error List tool will appear automatically when they contain relevant information. You saw me use the Groups tool earlier to drill down into the Eiffel-based library and find the class linked list. The Groups tool displays a hierarchy of clusters and libraries for the current project. The Features tool, not to be confused with the similarly named Feature tool, shows the features of the class which is the current target of the editor pane. The Favorites tool allows you to identify certain classes and features to which you may be navigating often and make them handier. Autotest is an automatic testing framework. It allows you to build a test suite for a project in 3 important ways. You can create tests manually, Well, semi-manually. Autotest will provide the boilerplate for a test class, and you just have to add the code that constitutes the test. Secondly, you can generate tests by having Autotest hammer away at your routines with random inputs and see what fails. Each unique failure will generate a new test. And thirdly, you can have Autotest extract a new test based on a failure while running. So if you're running your project and you get an unexpected failure, you can have Autotest extract a test case from the paused application that will reconstruct the run state and reproduce the failure. Then you can fix the bug and add this test to your project test suite to help detect a future regression of this issue. The diagram tool provides both a graphical view of your application plus graphical programming capability. It shows the classes and their relationships. One important thing to know about the diagram tool is that it provides a graphical representation of the single project software document. That is, if you change something on the diagram, it changes the software text. And if you change the software text, the appropriate changes show up on the diagram. So it's impossible for the diagram and the software text to get out of sync because both are sourced from the same document. The Info tool gives you access to the Eiffel information system. EIS allows you to link elements of your running application to external objects such as web pages or documents. This is helpful in providing context-sensitive online help and documentation to users of your Eiffel applications. The Metrics tool can be used to take measurements of your software in many different ways. The tool provides a comprehensive set of commonly used metrics, as well as a capability for you to create new custom metrics to suit your needs. Here I'll use the Metrics tool to calculate quickly the number of lines of code in the root cluster of this application. The Dependency tool gives you a graphic representation of the dependencies for targets, groups, folders, and classes in your project. Dependencies are shown in different levels to help you track things from the group level down to the feature call. And then there's some other tools that you don't see on the default layout. One is a search tool. Well, actually, you can search the current editor too by using the quick search bar. You invoke it by using the keyboard shortcut Control-F. But to do serious searching, you need to use the search tool. One way to invoke the search tool is by using the search button on the standard toolbar. The search tool gives you powerful find and replace capability across your whole project. Even though the search tool is not visible in the default layout, it works just like the other tools. It can be docked in the layout as you wish. The other tools I want to show you are seen only in the execution mode layout. That is, when you're actually running an application system. So let's start this system executing by clicking the Execute One Step at a Time button. You see the layout change to execution mode, and the tools in this layout are oriented toward debugging. The Feature tool now shows you the currently executing feature. The Objects tool allows you to examine the contents of objects at runtime. To the right, the Watch tool lets you define an expression and see its value. Here I'll create a new expression that simply reflects the current value of an attribute. The Threads tool gives you information on the execution threads and scoop processors currently executing. The Breakpoints tool will contain the status of all breakpoints in the executing application system. Then the Call Stack tool provides the routines as called from the root. Of course, all the tools change context appropriately when you examine and run the system. Well, that winds up our demo of Eiffelstudio. If you'd like more information, you can check out the online documentation pages dedicated to Eiffelstudio. You'll find lots of information about diverse Eiffel topics in the online presentations at Eiffel.com. In this video, you got a short introduction to software views. If you want a detailed analysis of the need for and the implementation of different views of software in modern object-oriented software engineering, go to Eiffel.com's Developers page and check out the Eiffel Learning Map, How Do You View? To communicate with other Eiffel users, be sure to sign up for the Eiffel Software Users Group. And lastly, if you're interested in what's going on behind the scenes in the development of Eiffelstudio, or you want to contribute to the effort yourself, visit dev.eiffel.com.